Why is he called God? The terrifying mysteries never revealed. In the year 43 AD, a nameless blind man in Judea looked up to the sky and asked, Adonai, if you truly exist, give me a name to call you. 3 days later, he died with a strange smile. On his scorched left palm was a word no one had ever seen before, Yeshua. People called it a miracle, but mystical scholars called it the first time a door was opened the wrong way. Since that moment, a series of divine names emerged: Jehovah, El Shaddai, Elohim, Theos, Deus, God. But there's one thing no one dares mention. None of those names were chosen by God himself. All of them are the result of bloody bargains between humans and supernatural forces. In an ancient Egyptian cipher sealed by the Vatican since the year 105, there's a line: they do not call him by his real name, because if anyone were to utter his true name, the world would skip a breath. Ancient Egyptians believed that knowing the true name of a god meant being able to control that god. So if God is real, then could Yeshua, God, or Chua merely be masks? Is he hiding behind the very name humanity prays to daily? That question once drove 3 high priests in Memphis mad after mispronouncing a single ancient symbol. So remember this: the name you whisper in the dark may not summon him. It may awaken something that never slept. From the dawn of awareness, mankind has had a strange instinct, naming everything they fear: a beast, a storm, a disease, and then a deity. Not to worship, but to understand and to control. But with God, it's not so simple. He has no form, no sound, no beginning. So how did humanity come up with the first name? The Sumerian legends, from the oldest civilization, offer the most chilling answer. They speak of a formless being, never manifesting, leaving only the scent of scorched tears when it passed. People didn't dare call it directly, only whispered Elu, meaning that which should not be named. That name Elu later evolved into El, then Elohim, and finally Yahweh in Judaism. But ancient Jewish scholars admitted it was not the real name. It was an encryption, a veil covering something far too dangerous to speak aloud. Why? Because in ancient belief, to say a god's true name is to force that god to appear. But with God, if you utter his real name with a heart that isn't pure, what appears will not be him. That's why in mystical texts, the true name is always written in blood, distorted, or deliberately misspelled, because those who once wrote it correctly did not live long enough to repeat it. April 1987, Negev Desert, Israel. Amid scorching sands and ancient ruins, an international archaeological team discovered a strange stone tablet, unlike any known language. On its surface were 4 deeply carved symbols, a sequence never seen in Hebrew, Aramaic, or ancient Egyptian inscriptions. Soon after, linguist Max Eminger, sponsored by the Vatican, claimed to have deciphered the meaning. He comes from the first scream of despair. What sounded like poetic metaphor triggered one of the fastest silencing operations in modern theological history. 3 days after publishing his translation, Max Eminger vanished. No trace, no farewell. Just the chilling testimony of his wife. I no longer remember my husband's face. The name Max sounds like a stranger I've never met. That incident was logged in a classified manuscript titled Codex Redemptoris, now kept in the Vatican's sealed vault, accessible by only 3 people on Earth. According to mystics, the name inscribed on that tablet wasn't a name as humans understand it. It was a vibration sequence, a divine signal, and if accidentally uttered at the correct frequency, a door would open. The true question is, did Max Eminger vanish, or was he pulled through? And more importantly, if someone hits that same frequency again, what will come through, and will it still wear God's face? Brother Aldrich, a 12th century monk in Normandy, wasn't known for miracles, nor was he canonized. Yet his name lingers in Benedictine abbeys, not in speech, but in a silence filled with dread. According to Vatican-sealed records from 1311, Aldrich secluded himself in a cave for 49 days, repeating a ritual each night, praying by chanting the name Jesus exactly 49 times, timed precisely to bronze bell vibrations, never pausing. On the 49th night, as he began the 50th recitation, a voice responded, also saying Jesus, but it wasn't his, not from his mouth, not from the cave, but from the back of his mind, as if another intelligence had borrowed his voice to answer back. The next morning, Aldrich was no longer Aldrich. He didn't recognize fellow monks. He couldn't read Latin, and when he looked into a mirror, he said something that terrified all present. The name answered, but what answered was not him. Since then, the Vatican forbade any attempt to phonetically transcribe God's true name in the language of Enoch, a tongue said to exist only in visions and dreams. According to the secretive Lux Veritatis Society, there are 72 ways to pronounce God's name, but only one is correct. And if someone accidentally speaks that one, you will no longer be you. You will become an echo of a being humans were never meant to command. The journey of humanity to know God. At first, the word God was merely a trembling sound in the night, the cry of those afraid, lost in a world that no longer answered them. But over time, the name became the last anchor for millions. People who prayed not because they understood, but because they had nothing else to hold on to. Yet in ancient Jewish manuscripts, a strange note was recorded. When a child cries at night, no one teaches them, but the word Elohim will rise within their soul. A spiritual instinct, or a divine program planted before we even learn to speak. More terrifying is this. Not everyone who calls is heard. Some believe that every time you cry, "Oh God," you're offering a piece of your soul to be weighed against the void. If you pray in doubt, in calculation, or worse, in deceit, the name may not help you, but turn against you. Some ancient texts recorded people who, after deceitful prayers, were haunted by sleep paralysis for 77 nights. On the final night, the voice that called God was no longer their own. That name is not for use. It is for safekeeping. Because one day, if it's misused, something else will answer. The secret never revealed until today. In the fourth sub-basement of the Vatican archives, untouched by sunlight, exists a classified file encoded with the highest level of security. Its title, M-Class 73. Its contents, infants, who never learned to speak, yet could pronounce the name of God. The first case, 1973, Verona, Italy. A premature baby, critically ill, was brought to the hospital. When a nurse placed her ear on the child's chest to check the heartbeat, she heard a whisper, not breathing, not a heartbeat, but a broken word, repeated over and over. Elohim, Elohim. No one believed it until the voice was recorded. And when Vatican monks brought the tape to the Institute of Sacred Sound in Cologne, Germany, they reversed the playback. The result stunned the lab. The reversed voice uttered the ancient Greek phrase, ego eimi, I am. Since then, dozens of similar cases emerged in Romania, Ethiopia, even Vietnam. Infants who could not walk, had never heard scripture, yet uttered the same word while dreaming or in deep sleep. Theologians were horrified. Some claimed they were primordial souls, once present before the throne of God before incarnation. But others issued a darker warning. If a child knows God's real name, who told them, and why? That question remains locked in silence, like a dagger yet to be drawn. Deep within the Debre Libanos Monastery in northern Ethiopia, a place unmarked on any map, there exists a room known as Zemada, meaning the breathless. Within lies one of the most chilling relics in religious history, a volume called the Book of Breath. No words, no symbols, no traditional pages. The entire book consists of 36 sheets of human skin sewn together, each stained with dried blood. And when a listener presses an ear to it, a faint breathing can be heard. According to an unnamed abbot, the book was not written. It was formed through an ancient ritual. 12 priests had to breathe a precise pattern, not spoken, over 7 days. Each misstep in breathing was seen as blasphemy, and the offending priest could no longer breathe. The most disturbing part, a team once measured the breath's waveform using acoustic analysis. The rhythm perfectly matched the vibrational frequency of the word westuri in ancient Hebrew, the real name of God. But in 1983, all research was banned by the Vatican, because if God's name can be heard, then who is breathing on his behalf in the dark? November 4th, 1891. A nameless storm swept across the Transylvanian mountains of Romania. In a forgotten valley, the Silentium Dei monastery, home to a monastic order who worshipped only the name Ea, fell into eternal silence. Villagers recounted that throughout that night, no bells rang, no candles lit, no prayers uttered, only a chilling void. At dawn, a young shepherd made a horrifying discovery. All 12 monks were dead, kneeling, hands clasped in prayer, with a strange symbol on each of their foreheads. Ea. Just 2 letters. But those are the oldest root of Yahweh, the sacred name only high priests may utter in the Holy of Holies. The most terrifying part? No signs of intrusion, no bloodshed, but their faces were contorted, as if forced to see something human eyes were never meant to behold. Only one monk survived, Father Marek, locked in the wine cellar for protesting a new ritual. When asked what happened, he gave one sentence. They tried to summon him, but he didn't come. What came wasn't him. He later went insane, clawed at his own face, and died 3 days later in complete silence. The Vatican dispatched a cleansing team, confiscated all texts and artifacts, and sealed the monastery with iron marked with the Latin phrase, Nomen non est vocandum. The name must not be called. Since that day, no one dares whisper Ea again, because what was summoned that night never left. You may have called God 1,000 times in your life. You may have prayed, begged, or even cursed. But have you ever wondered, are you truly calling the right one? His name does not lie in language. His name lies in what you fear to believe most, that there is one who sees you clearer than you see yourself. From the silent prayer, a handwritten scroll banned by the Vatican. So why is he called God? Because we, the blind, the panicked, and the desperate for meaning, needed something to call out to when everything else fell apart. And that name is the bridge between despair and faith.